So in this video, we're going to be looking at arrays in Python and in pseudocode, and we'll go through what they are. They're quite an important part of programming and can be a little tricky, but we'll go through it and I'm sure you'll get there. So basically, an array is where you have, instead of having a variable that can only hold one piece of information, you essentially have a variable that is like a filing cabinet, which has lots of different slots in it. So you can have multiple bits of data stored under a single variable name. It's often, like most things, best shown in an example, so I'll just get on and show you. So here in Python, we've created an array. So you'll notice that you do the same as normal, you do names equal, but instead of just writing, say, Martin, and only storing one name, we do a square bracket. And then we can put commas between the pieces of data to add more than one variable to it. So you can think of Martin as being in position 0 because computers start at 0. Bob is in position 1 and Steve is in position 2. So if we print names out, just the whole array, it will print it out like that. But it will print out the square brackets and the quotes, which can be quite annoying. But if you want to access an individual one, like the one in position 1, which remember, even though it's 1, in essence, it's the second one in because it starts at 0. So we just access it with the square brackets and the number. So you can add on more and more and more, and these can be essentially is infinite. There's probably some limit with memory, but essentially you can have a massive amount of names entered into this, and you can add names in code as we go. But normally they don't do that in the exam, so I'm not really going to go through that too much. But yeah, so that's what a pseudocode, that's what it looks like in Python. Interestingly, and for once it's good, it's exactly the same in pseudocode. There's no difference, okay? You can do exactly the same thing. There's this Python, there's a pseudocode one, there's a Python one, and they're exactly the same. So for once, that's quite handy. So let's have a look. When do you use it? Well, normally you use it when you want to store lots of data on a specific topic. So here, for example, is a made-up football team. Imagine it was the names followed by the wins, draws and losses. You would never, of course, store games played, as you can calculate that from adding up these three numbers. So think of that as the team name, wins, draws, losses, for and against or whatever, whatever you want to store. And obviously the points could be calculated. Once again, you would store the points. But this was just to demonstrate as well that it doesn't have to be the same data type. I can store, one of them can be a string, the next one a number, the next one a boolean, the next one a float, whatever. Or I can just go back and forth changing it up. And just on a very random thing, if I was to try and print, say, team, in fact, I could demonstrate this. If I were to copy this, go into the web, I'm going to start a new version because I don't want to lose what I've got. If I go into there, just got to change these quotes, as for some reason when you let's zoom in a bit, paste quotes, they don't work. If I print team square bracket 6, it will give me an error because 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 is out of range. That's why it says list index out of range. So basically it's out of range. It's very common that kids make that mistake. Obviously, if I wanted to do it, I should have done 5 and then I would get the number 3. So that's quite a common bug that happens in real life as well. Not just when I'm testing it here. So hold on, let me just swap these back around. Right, there we go. So getting the number of items, it's quite common that we want to know, find out how many things in an array. Because obviously here we're putting in the names. But it could be that we're going to get people to keep adding, names. They keep typing, and then when they stop typing, that's the end. So we need to get the length of names, the number of items, sorry. So in pseudocode, you put dot length at the end. So in pseudocode, you do print, or you have to do print, whatever you want to do with it. Names dot length will give us the number, an integer with how many things are in it. So 1, 2, 3. In Python and in most languages, it looks like this. You do len, and then you put the, which stands for length, obviously, and then you put the variable in brackets. So there you go. You can see that ran, and I've actually got the length of names there, which is quite handy. And we're going to use it in a second for something quite useful. So last week we looked at, or last session, sorry, you looked at the for loop. Now, a for loop, one of the main things it can do is to loop through an array. That's one of its best things. So if we just think about it, in fact, let's go to the code and I'll explain it with code. Then I'll come back here. Right. There we go. So I've got 3 names, 0, 1, and 2 positions. So what this for loop will do is it's going to loop for, imagine, it's like I've typed 3 in there because the length of names is 3. And remember, in Python, it doesn't do the last number. So this isn't going to be 0 to 3. This is going to be 0 to 2 because the length of names is 3. So that's like me doing 3 in there. And if I print out that, let's just print out I. It's going to get 0, 1, 2. That's exactly the same as doing names.length. Oh, sorry, not names.length. That's pseudocode. Length of names, because we know names is 3 long. Right? So that's going to print 0, 1, 2. But if we want to access each individual name one at a time, maybe we're looking for a person, like we're going to search to see if Jeff is in there or whatever. So, let's search. Let's do search. In fact, I'll demonstrate this. Search equals Jeff. Right? That's what we're searching for. So how to access each individual one is, well, think about it. I access 0 by doing names 0. So, but because the for loop will go 0, then 1, then 2. If I put I in there, okay, it's going to print each individual name out one at a time. So that is basically allowing me to access each one at a time. So if I can do like, I'll do if names I is equal to search, then I print, yes, they're in there. Now I can't do else no, which a lot of kids think will work. But the problem is because it will check Martin first, and then Martin isn't Jeff, and it will say no, no, no. It's going to print out no every time. Let's add Jeff to the end. Hello, Jeff. So another good reason why doing the length is I don't have to change the number down here if I add more. And that's going no, 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 yes, because no, 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 yes. So you don't normally do the else there. You would just do it like that. And it would just say, yes, we found Jeff. And if we change it to A, we won't find it. He's not in there. So that is how you loop through and accessing in a for loop. So if we go back here to that, if you look here, so in pseudocode, though, it's different as always. So because pseudocode does include the final number, you see, so if we didn't, we have to do a -1. Because if we didn't do -1, for I equals 0 to 3, print names I, that would go print name 0, print name 1, print name 2, fine. But then it would also do print names 3 and would crash because there is no 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. So with pseudocode, you have to do -1 on the length, but you don't do that in Python because when you do range, it doesn't include the final number. So there. Yeah, so that's basically the main reason to use a for loop. One of the main reasons to use a for loop, other than just doing things a certain number of times, like 10 times, is because you can loop through an array. Now, it's also true, just quickly, if I do the same thing, let's just rename this to name and actually make this Martin. Okay. So it's also true that you can loop through a string. So if I want to access, say, the third letter of the string, I can go print name, square bracket, 2, because that would be the third letter. So that's going to be R. So I can do that because actually a string is in essence an array of single characters. The M is in position 0, A is in 1, R2, 3, so on. So I can do the exact same thing I did before with the array, but this time it's going to, so I do range the length of name, which is going to give us the number of letters, because length of a string gives them letters, 6. So that's going to go 0 to 5, right? So then if I print name I, that's going to print each individual letter one at a time. Now you might think that's pointless, but it can be useful, because what if I wanted to maybe, I don't know, change every A to a Z? So I would then go, make a new variable like, I don't know, like a final text, make it blank. Okay. So, okay, if name I is A, then I'm going to add to final text a Z. Otherwise, I'm just going to add the letter that it was. So basically what's happening here, I'm looping through the string. If I check name I and it's an A, I'm going to add to this blank string. So I've started a blank box at the start, final text. And if I find an A, I'm going to add a Z to this. If I don't find an A, I'm just going to copy whatever the actual letter was. So after this, and if I print out final text, you're going to see that it should say MZRTIN. Because what I've done is, if I just did that, I'm essentially that's just copying the text one letter at a time. So that would just be Martin. I'm just copying over. I'm looking at each letter and copying it over. But then what I'm doing here is I'm checking to see what that letter is first. And if I don't like the letter A, I'm going to turn it into a Z. And if it's not an A, I'm just going to copy the original letter. That's one sort of way you can use for loops to loop through an array and a string. So have a go at the worksheet and then we can go on to the next session.